those of you that were watching before and jumped off because you couldn't hear me, thanks to Nick for pointing that out, because I wouldn't have known for the whole hour.
Yeah.
And that would have been really unfortunate. Not that I put a whole lot of super concentrated effort into this, but nice to know that it works when it works. So we're back again with Live Free and Rant, episode 9. I am Chris Maidment. Co-host over there is Joel Valenzuela, the dirty Mexican.
Yeah, dirtier. Well, it's
it's
funny.
We just we talk about crap.
There's one of my favorite drinks, for coffee drinks, is this thing called a Dirty Irish Mexican that's out of True Brew in Concord, and it's like an Irish cream latte with a little bit of cayenne pepper on it, and it's pretty good. So yeah, so if you're just watching this, make sure to pay no mind to the old video. Watch this new one that's going live, and yeah, we'll go and delete the old crappy ones. So yeah, if you're just watching, donate, subscribe, donate, all that stuff. We thankfully didn't really get into too much crazy stuff before this. We're just talking about
we didn't get far into it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the restaurants are going to be open for outdoor dining. That's where we left off. So I'll just launch in there, because what we were talking about, you had said something about capacity for indoor restaurants, and now I was listening to the task force, the governor's economic reopening task force, or something like that. It's GERT, GERT.
Oh.
The restaurant industry said, the restaurant association, I should say, said it doesn't make sense to put an arbitrary percentage restriction on restaurants indoors, because some restaurants can move tables around and get to 100%, and some restaurants can't move tables around. Maybe they have to X off every other table or put up maybe plexiglass. I heard McDonald's is thinking about putting maybe plexiglass in between booths so that they can get to 100%, something like that. So they didn't want to put some arbitrary percentage on indoor dining in restaurants. What they said was it should be 100%, and it'll be up to the restaurants to get to whatever capacity they can get to safely, following social distancing, 6 feet, all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then outdoor dining, this still has to be 6 feet, and you can open 100% capacity. So that's what the task force went with for now, is 100% outdoor capacity, 0% indoor capacity. I guess one of the main concerns is airflow, right? So it's kind of like being a little bit similar to being like in an airplane where all the air just gets recycled. So there's big, depending on the restaurant, there's these big air handlers.
Yeah.
There's intake and then there's outtake. So if you're sitting right below an intake or an outtake, or let's say you're right below the air conditioner vent, and you sneeze and the air conditioner's on and it just takes your sneeze and it blows it much further than 6 feet. Now sitting 6 feet apart isn't safe distance anymore, and blah, 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 whatever. I think restaurants should be able to open. I think you know that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people know that, because if you don't feel safe and you're afraid of getting the virus, you can just stay home.
Of course.
It's pretty simple. Just stay home.
Now, here's another thing to think about on that subject is who has outdoor patios? Not everyone. And definitely the bigger players probably do. If you have a large place, you can have. And so isn't it convenient to be like, hey, little competition people that don't have any outdoor areas, you're screwed.
Well, I think it's probably more of the small businesses that have outdoor dining, isn't it? I've never seen outdoor dining at an Applebee's or a Chili's, or, I mean, at some McDonald's, I get like outdoor patios, but that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And then you get into the smaller places like Murphy's in Manchester and Murphy's in Bedford have big outdoor patios. It's kind of like his niche market, right? Is outdoor dining in the summer, especially downtown Manchester. You're right on Elm Street, right across from the Southern New Hampshire University Center. So that's a great spot. So he's going to end up doing probably pretty well, because he probably can fit more people outside than he can inside. So, yeah. I mean, I guess it's a mixed bag. But then you get into places like downtown Portsmouth or downtown Manchester, let's say. And if you don't have that space, well, you can't you can't set up outdoor dining in the road, right? I guess if you have a parking lot, you can use the parking lot. So maybe you don't have outdoor tables and chairs, but you can buy outdoor tables and chairs and just close off half of your parking lot and do outdoor dining. I guess that was part of the stay-at-home 2.0 order, is that you can do that and the health department can't say boo.
Yeah.
So who knows? I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Of course, one of my favorite things about stay-at-home 2.0, right, is that golf courses and campgrounds can be open, but only for New Hampshire residents, which has led a lot of people over the weekend to ask, wait, why can't we always do this?
Well, I mean, obviously because it just, anyone can come in and out of the state. It's a, free travel. It's a free country. And it just, the reason they're saying that is to try to dissuade, the hordes of massholes to coming up and just ruin it all for everyone. Because especially if you have no freedom down there, you have everyone rushing up here to take part in the freedom up here. Of course, that doesn't enter people's brains that, hey, if you have a less free state and you don't like that, you should move. Like, become one of us. But hey, it is what it is.
Right. Well, so I guess if we, like, let's say it's a privately owned campground and a privately owned golf course. What is to stop them from just always prohibiting mass holes, right?
Yeah.
If it's a government owned campground, I guess it would be unconstitutional for them to stifle interstate commerce like that. But if it's a privately owned business, I mean, I believe that privately owned businesses should be able to do pretty much whatever they want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Including opening during a pandemic. But that's a topic for 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I love that because this weekend was gorgeous, right? I spent all weekend outside building my pig enclosure.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, I guess, came up to the beach from Massachusetts. So this was a big topic of discussion that we're probably going to talk about the mandatory mask usage again. But a bunch of Massachusetts people came up to use the beach and to use what little is open in New Hampshire, sparking some conversation about mandatory mask usage in Hampshire, because all these mass people are coming up here anyways, even if they can't use some of the industries.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing's for sure, beyond just the border of this little teeny state, there's a lot of people out there who are starting to sort of push back against this kind of thing. I believe I read some headline there said something along the lines of whether or not it's legal, the lockdown is effectively ended. Because a lot of people, first off, they're cooped up, they've hit their boiling point, they're ready to get out of the house. And they've also hit their economic boiling point where they're ready to, like, not starve to death anymore. And it's summertime. It's getting into summer. People are going to be done despite orders. And we've started to see this kind of thing, which is kind of the subject of what we're going on through right now. In fact, I forgot to let you in on the program here with the screen share. Here we go. So.
Oh, now you can see what I'm talking about. That's kind of nice.
Civil disobedience, so hot right now. Yeah, I mean, it's an older meme, sir.
First of all, Zoolander is a fantastic movie.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't seen it, I recommend watching Zoolander. Great movie.
Yes, and I know it's an old meme, but who cares? It's one of those evergreen ones. And in this case, so the concept of civil disobedience is basically you do whatever the hell you want, despite what the government says. But you do it without actually shooting the bastards. So it's not like, well, what the American Revolution was based on was uncivil disobedience. Or, disobedience where, people don't like you, so you don't like what they're telling you to do, so you just shoot them if they try to stop you. This right now is just, hey, we disagree with these rules and regulations affecting us right now, so we're just going to go ahead and just do whatever we want, and then in so doing, protest the laws and hopefully get them to reconsider. So
the theory behind it is, right, like, so
mm-hmm.
if every business in New Hampshire just said, screw it, we're gonna do whatever we want anyways, and
or a
you
critical
get the ones
mass
that want to
thereof.
open it, and they go open.
Mm-hmm.
Are you gonna rile up the National Guard to go shut all these businesses down?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if one restaurant decides to open against the order, which we're going to talk about,
yeah,
then what you effectively get is one restaurant versus the force of the entire government. Whereas if every restaurant opens it, now it's every restaurant against the force of the state government. And at that point, it becomes like this tipping point. Like, well, the National Guard are they going to go around to every restaurant? Is the state police going to go to every restaurant? Are they going to pull all these liquor licenses from every restaurant? I mean, if one restaurant does it, that's easy. Boom, you pull their health and liquor license. Like this guy in Maine, Sunday River Brewing Company, I believe it was. He said, he's in Maine. He said, screw you, Janet Mills. I'm opening my restaurant. I'm tired of this. We're open. And he had a line of people to use his facility voluntarily. Nobody forced them to go there. They said, this guy's open. We love it. We're going to go support him. And then within probably hours, Janet Mills and the government of Maine revoked his health and liquor license.
Which, by the way,
effectively destroying his entire future.
According to me, things that shouldn't exist in the first place. There should not be a license that permits you to be open and to serve liquor. I think those kinds of licenses should be like private certifications that just say this is a reputable business that's gone through all the things that we deem to be safe to operate, but not a permission slip to open. You should be able to open a terrible business and have people say, that's terrible. They don't trust them. Don't trust that they know how to handle alcohol correctly, pan them. But
and the free market will take care of it. And if you actually commit a crime, like a real crime with a victim, then the government in that instance can come in and say, no, you committed a crime. We're going to prosecute you for that crime. We're going to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And then we're going to go from there.
Yeah.
But this government permission slip to do a normal industry, right? Like, so, I mean, if I were to cook dinner and just serve people in my driveway, I don't necessarily know, but maybe I'll charge them, a few dollars here and there. I would be committing, quote unquote, a litany of
crimes.
What are crimes under state law? Because I raise my own meat, I process my own meat, and if I cooked it in a quote unquote unapproved kitchen and then served it to people without a license, and maybe I serve them liquor too, oh, heaven forbid the damage that could be done, right?
Yeah.
And the premise behind all of these permission slips is public safety. Public safety, public safety, public safety, public safety. Well, who knows to keep you safe better than yourself, right? If you go to a place and you get sick, or if somebody goes to a place and they get sick, it's 2020. This stuff goes viral on the internet in 4 seconds flat. So if you got food poisoning, I mean, remember what happened at Chris Pappas's restaurant there? What's it called? Backyard? No, it's in Manchester. They got good chicken fingers.
Puritan?
Whatever. Somebody had
Puritan.
One of those.
Was it Puritan?
Thank you.
Yeah. How can you be from around here? Forgot Puritan. Anyway,
somebody had the norovirus, right? And they were at a function there, and a bunch of people got the norovirus because of this function. One person died, and the Puritan made literally national news, and that's because Chris Pappas is a congressperson. But stuff like that just goes viral so fast now that the free market will take care of this stuff. Now, one person gets food poisoning, probably an isolated incident. If it happens regularly, then there's something wrong with that restaurant. They're going to go out of business.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, civil disobedience is kind of interesting because a lot of people rely on the government to tell them what they should and shouldn't be doing, which I think is madness, but it's just the way we ended up finally. And so the government says you can't go to these shops, so people don't, and the shop owners don't open. But then we have this magical thing, this magical set of circumstances where people just say, you know what, through desperation, through disbelief, through whatever reason, through anger, whatever you want to call it, people decide, you know what, nah. And then they go do what they want, and then guess what? Nothing really happens. So, nothing really happens unless the government makes it happen, which is kind of a scary, threatening kind of way of doing things. But our dear friend, Yvonne Dean Bailey, who used to be a state rep in New Hampshire, and for some reason decided to go full communist California. Well, I don't know. I don't judge life choices. I do kind of judge going to California because
just to clarify, she is not a communist, but she did move to communist California.
Yes, so she is a sheep in the lion's den, so to speak. she's
Well, I
been
think she's a lion in the sheep's den, isn't she?
well, yeah, I guess depends on how you want to go spin your metaphors, but she of course made the podcast a few episodes ago for her mom basically being deemed a non-essential business for being an esthetician, and then we had a good laugh over having you try to say esthetician, and now of course Yvonne has been upset over this whole thing, and has been started this to really lean into the reopen America thing. And as part of that, guess what? There's this place called the gym, which is great branding in California. That is a gym, and guess what? They opened, and despite it being, I guess, illegal to do so, and so Yvonne went there and you know, willingly went and worked out there and paid a drop-in rate and all that kind of stuff. Just actually, went to work, went to the gym, just like a normal person would. Except in this case, it's breaking the law, because, oh, you could hurt somebody or something. And it's kind of funny because California, as we all know very well, is not exactly the bastion of freedom and awesome thinking. It is not exact. Is one of the. It's usually tied with, or it's not tied, but it's not far behind New York as one of the least free places in this country. Which, by the way, this is how spoiled we Americans are. That California is thought of like a statist hellhole. Go to any other country, pretty much, and it's like, oh man, California was pretty free after all. But basically, people are starting to resist these orders all over the country because they've just had enough now, and they've had enough evidence of, the curve flattening. They've had enough evidence of the actual mortality rates and projections being completely off. They've had enough, anecdotal evidence of like, oh yeah, this person had it and this happened. They've been on TikTok enough to see that so many healthcare professionals just working that stuff all day long. Of course, I'm sure most healthcare professionals are actually doing a fantastic job, but there's enough limited capacity. There's enough limited usage of the healthcare system right now that now it's being like, you know what? We're kind of all starving to death here, and we don't need to be. So let's go out and get a job. Let's go out and get our job back. They took our jobs.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I mean, if a business that I wanted to go to open near me, like let's say, I mean, I don't go to the gym anymore because one, I don't have time with two small kids, a farm, a wife, everything else that I do. But if I was somebody that went to the gym and the gym that I went to opened, or a gym near me opened that I normally don't go to, I would be there in a heartbeat.
Of course.
Or, and we don't even eat out that often. We don't get the opportunity to eat out that often. But if a restaurant opened on a speakeasy status near me, I would be there in a heartbeat. I would absolutely support their free decision to open their business and to make a living for themselves, regardless of what any government says, whether I support that government or not. So, I'm a big fan of Governor Sununu in New Hampshire. I think he's done a pretty fantastic job over the last 3.5 years as our governor. But I would absolutely do full-on civil disobedience for a business that I found use in.
Yeah.
So
And that
I wouldn't necessarily go get my nails done at a, under the radar nail salon because, I mean, it's just not something I do. But any business that I would use, I would absolutely support.
Yeah, and that's which I don't want to spend too long on because we already hit on it in previous episodes. But that is kind of funny, the separation, the mental separation of the state and the governor to a certain extent. At least it seems to be that way because of people going to the state house protesting against what the governor has said, yet seeing, yeah, he's a cool guy. I just think what he does sucks. And there seems to be a little bit of cognitive dissonance. I'm 50-50 on if that's cognitive dissonance. So first off, Sununu is probably compared to most people, especially most politicians, a freedom-oriented person. He believes more or less in freedom. And he is unfortunately, or fortunately, a pragmatist, a very pragmatic kind of person, not an ideologue. And I remember when he narrowly won the New Hampshire primary,
Yes,
like
very
by
narrow,
the
very
narrowest of
narrow.
margins, when he was kind of like the shoe-in sort of, and then who is now his education commissioner, Frank Edelblut, almost beat him, being like the hardcore principled liberty guy. And I think that kind of like pushed him in a more pragmatic, it pushed his pragmatism in a more freedom oriented direction. And
I think that's probably true.
yes, and I would probably argue that he has been able to do more than possibly. Again, this is who knows, right? Who knows if Edelblut had been in as governor. I'm guessing that Sununu's probably been able to get away with freedom, more freedom based things because of his pragmatic sort of approach to things, because of who he is as a pragmatist. Unfortunately, it swings the other way as well. Whereas right now, I'd love to have a North Dakota style governor who just says, nope, we're not shutting anything down. Nope, we're not doing this. We're trusting individuals.
South Dakota,
Whatever.
But that's okay.
Yeah, no, yeah, whatever. I'm not gonna say
I mean,
anything.
Christy Noem is a fantastic governor out in South Dakota, but South Dakota,
It's
I
also
mean, there's
easier to be that
so
way
many
out there.
differences between South Dakota and New Hampshire.
Yes, and part of it
Right?
is your neighbors aren't rushing to go to your beaches and stuff because they have a completely like terrible lockdowns and stuff going on. So
Yeah.
I would probably like. I think a lot of people are giving Sununu slack because they realize that he's a pragmatist and that pragmatically he's flanked by all these other like Vermont banning seed sales and other random things like that. Maine, of course, cracking down. I can't even go. Like I used to go on the drive because I'm walking distance from Maine right here, and so I used to like go on to I'm sorry, don't judge me, but I used to when I go through a drive, turn back the other road, I dip into South Berwick or whatever on the way back down, and like now there's these big signs says warning non-essential travel to Maine. You're subject to a 14-day mandatory quarantine and all this kind of stuff, and it's just like that's in Maine, and of course Massachusetts all shut down as well. And if you have too much freedom up here, you will get people coming up here and taking advantage of it. It's just kind of how it works. And rather than just say, so be it, we're going to do our thing, we're not going to restrict the rights of our citizens, he's chosen the pragmatic approach of saying, yeah, well, let's act in accordance with our neighbors so we don't get some negative effects and I don't get blamed for possible surges and deaths and things like that or whatever.
Well,
very very pragmatic.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah.
The other part of it is we say that we're this the live free and die state all the time. The Free State Project chose here to move liberty forward. We have a lot of liberty representatives in the House of Representatives, which one of whom is watching now. Hi, Janine.
Hi, Janine.
There's all these people that believe in liberty and that want to move New Hampshire towards more liberty. But if you look at the general population at large, so after 9/11, right? I was pretty young. I think I was in 7th or 8th grade when 9/11 happened. And then immediately after that, we got 2 wars that we're still in, right? And we got the Patriot Act.
No one's
so the government's
upset about
spying on us.
Yeah.
So the government's been spying on us for 18, 19 years now, and they just get away with it because it's all in the name of safety. We got the TSA out of 9/11, and they are the biggest. I hate flying, and I think anybody that goes through the TSA frequently hates the TSA, right? So you to get on a plane, they literally scan your body with these scanners, or you can get a pat down or whatever. And we went along with that in the name of safety because at least a majority of the people in this country feel safer when the government does these things that quote unquote make us safe, right? So we're getting the same kind of effect now where the Governor Sununu has an overwhelming approval rating. It was like 90%.
Yeah.
Of 90% of people who took this survey. I forget. I don't know how many. I'm sorry. I'm losing my train of thought. There were 2 different surveys.
Yeah.
UNH and St. A's both did polls, and he had like an 89% approval rating among Republicans in one and an 86% approval rating among Republicans in the other.
Mm-hmm.
So even if what we think he's doing is wrong, and even if what a lot of people think what he's doing is wrong, they're still support him, right? They're giving him the support.
Yeah, which
So
is it's weird
it's hard to
because
argue that it's.
oh,
Ugh.
I wonder what
Go ahead.
I wonder what the so again, that feeds into being a pragmatist and keeping those approval ratings high, even if it's possibly destructive to the state. But I'm not trying to be mean to him here. It's also wondering if I wonder if his policies have the same approval rating. You know what I mean? Like probably not. And there's a little bit of a disconnect. And I don't know exactly how I feel about like. So I don't think it's necessary. Like I don't think being mean to people in political power is necessarily a productive thing. Like saying like he's just a dictator and blah, 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 blah. Okay, focus on the policies, right? And honestly, if you have a pragmatist in office, you know, why don't you give the pressure that would then cause him to pragmatically do the things you like? So, for example, if the whole state engages in civil disobedience, eventually he's got to either become not a pragmatist and start cracking down on people and sending in the troops and all this kind of nonsense, in which case people are going to hate him real quick, or he's going to have to go along with that. So as always, power to the actual people.
Right, absolutely. And right now, people support the governor, even if they don't necessarily support his actions. By and large, I've seen a lot of sniping lately. There's a lot of people that are saying, "Oh, I'm never going to vote for this guy again. He's trampling on my rights." Blah 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 blah. Okay, I mean, a lot of people will vote on a certain principle or a certain few principles, right? Like there's a lot of one-issue voters, Second Amendment voters, abortion voters, religious freedom. There's on the left, they're opposite, right?
Don't die.
Excuse me. Not
Yep.
the Rona. Don't worry.
He's got it. He's got it.
And so there are people that won't vote for Governor Sununu because of these policies. But there are many, many more, I submit, that will still vote for him as quote unquote the lesser of two evils.
There we go again.
Yeah. Well,
age-old
here we go again.
dichotomy.
But if we look back, look at his actual 3.5 years of accomplishments, right?
Yeah.
57 vetoes just last year.
Yeah, so
Of these garbage bills, like raising the minimum wage to $15, blah 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 blah, whatever.
yeah,
And
so
gun control, all of this.
this is where it separates from the lesser of two evils thing, because excluding the COVID stuff, and even then, you got to see the kind of disparity between what he's done and what the surrounding dictatorial governors have done. Excluding the COVID thing, I would not call him the lesser of two evils. I would call him a substantial improvement over the previous status quo. And so, that's the thing is if like someone like Edelblue is running again in the primary, which I don't think he specifically will, but if someone like that is running, of course I'd vote for that one over Sununu personally. But then, in the general, we'll see. Anyway, that's a long ramble. We got one last tab to talk about here, which if you're just watching, I'll leave a moment of silence while you just kind of go through this nonsense here. And I don't necessarily want to read this out. If you want to read it out, you can. But
No, I'm not gonna read it out. But
Good for
we'll
you.
talk about the backstory. So
Richard N. Comey.
Richard Comey was a state representative from Manchester who Joe Biden's, highlighted him on a couple of videos, I guess. He's Team Biden all the way. And so this tweet, which everybody can just read for themselves.
Yes, and if you can't see it for whatever reason, you're just listening only. Just remember to look up Richard Comey, Komi, Richard Comey tweet, and you can find basically what he just said is talking about Joe Biden's accuser for sexual misconduct, and basically just saying that judging by female anatomy, that's impossible, in just some really disgusting kind of like does this
Well, it's
guy?
completely ignorant.
Yeah,
I
and he
mean, it's
has
completely
kids.
ignorant of the human anatomy. It's completely ignorant of sexual assault survivors, of
Yeah.
which there are, I mean, millions of sexual assault survivors probably in the world, right? Maybe even more than that. I don't really know.
Yes.
But it's to say, I mean, it completely just diminishes survivors and their it's and whatever. So, and then at the end, he says, she's looking for attention. So anytime if so, first of all, the hashtag Me Too movement is dead, right? Because
Yes.
Joe Biden has been credibly accused of sexual assault. Now, you
Mm-hmm.
can say that Justice Kavanaugh was credibly accused. You can say Donald Trump's been credibly accused. And we went through that whole thing where
Mm-hmm.
they went through, Kavanaugh went through, I mean, this grueling Senate process where they dragged all of this up. They brought his accusers into the Senate. They went through the whole thing because hashtag believe all women, right? And now you have this where the Democrats are forced with this. I mean, it's Alinsky's rules or make the other side live up to their own rules, right? That's
Yeah.
number 6, I think it is. So you get the hashtag believe all women crowd, and now all of a sudden they don't believe all women. So what are they going to do? And not only that, but Joe Biden has said that his vice presidential candidate is going to be a woman. So you're going to have this woman vice presidential candidate that has to say she doesn't believe the accuser, right? Because otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
how could you be on his ticket? Either you believe all women or you don't. But in this case, are you going to be a vice presidential candidate for a man who has been credibly accused of sexual assault, and you're just going to get owned by your own party, right? The hashtag Me Too movement is dead. They
Of
killed it.
course.
They killed it. And of course, the whole movement is split over how to handle this. And this state rep from Manchester tweeted this vulgar tweet that's just completely ignorant.
Yes, which
And
is partisan politics, and that's kind of stuttering, to be honest. Like politics, the team-based tribalism of any kind, which includes like brand loyalty, or includes, I would even say, like for example, religion for religion's sake, where you don't question your own beliefs ever, things like that that are just. It's definitely a disease of the brain of a certain to a certain extent, where you're basically able to say, I believe all these things to be true in my life. I have principles. I try to be a good person. I do whatever else. But everything who I am as a person, everything that we all agree is correct, goes out the window as soon as I got to beat the other guy. As soon as I got to fight off the other team. And it's not in a pragmatic way, just in a complete like cognitive dissonance way. Where here you have people who are saying, yes, believe all women, all this kind of stuff, possibly as just a political tool because it was great in the times of Kavanaugh and Trump to use against him. But even given the benefit of the doubt and saying that that was all sincere at the time, now it's got to go out the window because their guy, their team, their only guy to beat Trump supposedly, is now a victim of that. He is now subject to that same scrutiny, and it goes to the rationale by people who have said anything about like why would you go for this guy, he's a total creep, among other things, including possibly not going to have brain function for much longer, who knows, he's not doing well in interviews and such. But the whole justification is I don't care, anything to beat Trump.
yeah,
Now, beat Trump could be a noble goal. The problem is it's not a noble goal outside of justifications as to why. Beat Trump because he is doing this wrong to the world.
yeah, no, it's just because Orange Man bad, right?
Yeah. And it's like, okay, Orange Man may be bad, but what is bad about him? And one of the things that was supposedly bad about him, he's a terrible example for our children because he's just a vulgar person who's, does bad things to women and disrespects them. And now you have creepy Uncle Joe. Like, that doesn't solve the problem. That beats Trump by be the next Trump. Like, it doesn't, you're still in the same situation you were before you did this. But then you have people that now, especially when you're wrong, you're abundantly wrong. There's a great Bill Burr bit, the comedian Bill Burr, greatest voice of our generation, whatever you want to call him, who, when he's talking about the way women argue, which is, he's just talking about like arguing with a significant other, when he's talking about, well, when they're correct, when they're right, they stay on the facts 100% of the time. and zero in until you're begging for forgiveness. But if they're wrong, they go rogue. They start talking about stuff you're sensitive about, like maybe you don't get along with your family or whatever. Anything to just make you lose it and just yell an obscenity at them, and then all of a sudden, that's what it's about. And so it's kind of the same thing with politics. When people are wrong, it's like, clearly you cannot defend this old guy and just say that he is absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, innocent, and we should not even question anything. You can't. It's obvious. So instead, you got to start just saying nonsense to try to distract from it. Just start making up dumb things like, oh, she's just looking for attention or whatever, like stuff. Okay, in which case it's like, okay, but then it's like, but besides, female anatomy wouldn't allow for this, and I'm like, oh God, you don't go there. Oh, that's the worst place to go. But you'll go anywhere to fight against the enemy team.
Yeah. Now, in fairness, the Speaker of the House, who is a Democrat right now, right, Steve Shurtleff, as soon as he learned about this tweet, he called and demanded Comey's resignation.
Who is
and
since
Comey
resigned.
did resign. So, I mean, on this one issue, the Speaker has finally done the right thing, because if over the past year and a half, we've watched him cherry pick Republicans for saying certain things and removing them from their committees.
Yeah.
And, he removed John Burt from criminal justice because he called I believe, John, if I get this wrong, sorry, I believe he called the head of Fish and Game, he called him a tyrant or something like that. I don't remember exactly. And then he got plucked off criminal justice committee. James Spillane got removed from Fish and Game committee because he killed a squirrel with a 50 cal, I think it was, which is a little overboard, but I mean, hey, it's New Hampshire. I love it. Like, if you get squirrels that are just destroying your chicken coop, blast away, my friend. Squirrels are just varmint.
So in my personal experience, the first time I ever shot a squirrel was with a BB gun. It just bounced off. It barely even annoyed it. I had a crappy little BB gun. And then the second time was with a 22, and that more than did the job, and we ate them.
A 22 will do the job.
Yeah,
with a
22.
Squirrel. But I mean, if you have a 50 cal and you want to take it out and you have land,
that's what I'm saying. Like,
the squirrel's going to be dead either way. It doesn't matter what you use. The squirrel's going to die, right?
So a 22 wasn't even he got me, stumbles a little, flop. Like, no, 22 is a warrior's death. Like, he just, boom, just gone. Now, a 50 cal is like a hero's death. Like, at that point, you're just like, it's like the movie thing. It's like, tell my family I love them. Then there's nothing left. There's no body left or anything. It's just, which, I mean, it's a little grotesque, but it's gotta be one of the most painless things, because you don't have nerves to feel pain at that point. There's no brain left.
No.
It's gone.
It's over, right? So he got removed from his committee for that. But then we had Tamara Lay, right, who was, she's a representative on the Seacoast, and she's on the education committee. And she tweeted out, F private and charter schools. I think that was the tweet. It was either private and charter or private and religious. But she said F private and religious schools. I think that's actually correct. And she was, quote unquote, suspended from her committee. So she has this clear bias against two very big parts of the education system in New Hampshire. She has a clear bias against them. So she can't obviously legislate unbiased, but we expect our legislators to have bias. So by Shurtleff only suspending her, and she never apologized for saying that either, Shurtleff only suspended her from the committee instead of removing her, which shows that she has the quote unquote correct bias against education.
Yes, but at some point, even that kind of bias, you just see some guy tweeting about female anatomy and stuff, and you're just like, oh God, this is not something that can be recovered from, because at that point, you're just kind of covering your own ass. You're saying, okay, if I don't get ahead of this and just say, hey, crazy person who just tweeted the stupidest thing in the history of the legislature, maybe. I
don't know. Have you seen our legislature? Because they've done some pretty stupid crap, right? Like Kyle Tasker was actually, we don't need to get into that.
Oh, yeah.
But there have been some bad apples in the New Hampshire legislature,
because there are just so many apples, and the barrier.
There's so many. Kyle Tasker, Eric Schlein. There's really no. I mean,
but as far as
400.
Tweets, as far as public,
as far as public tweets,
That's up
this is
there.
probably one of the worst. It's definitely up there.
It's in the gallery,
But
the
the
rogues
speaker did the
gallery.
right thing. The speaker did the right thing. He asked for him to resign. He ended up resigning.
Like
So
right away too.
Representative Comey is no more, thankfully. There are a couple good representatives that are liberty oriented that are running in his district. So hopefully that helps move the needle in their direction.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine getting someone worse. But you know, it's funny. Just like switching back to the when I see like the combination of like dress and the glasses and stuff from his thing, the first thing I see when I look at that, it reminds me of was it for the people from Ghana dancing with the coffin meme thing? I don't know if you've seen that one going around.
I don't think I've seen it.
Oh, it's pretty funny, but it's basically used as a meme to indicate someone is like dead. They're done for. Because it's like if those guys are dancing towards you, that means it's like, you know, and it's been used with like King Jong-un and other people like that. And it's funny because that kind of happened to his political career. Yeah, that's got to have gone in the coffin. But anyway, memedoms, maybe depending on the average age of this audience, we may or may not have a positive response from that, or the immature.
Well, Ross is here. Ross is a memer.
Yes, Ross
There's
remembers.
a few memers watching.
Ross, you throw in the comments if you remember the dancing coffin thing, and if that's what you thought of when you saw this guy, and that's what happened to his political career.
Yeah, and he so I mean, New Hampshire has made the New Hampshire legislature, I guess, regularly makes national news now. It's like I don't know if that's a feature or a bug. There was a Democrat last year, I think it was, that made CNN for saying, you know, if you don't like the way she effing talks, then F you. And she won't talk, you know, Sherry Frost, I mean, it was one of the most vulgar legislators in the New Hampshire House, and she made CNN for something, and she's never been reprimanded. She never will be. She's in one of the most Democrat districts in the state. And then you get, you know, Rosemary Rung that says crazy stuff on Twitter all the time, doesn't understand basic economics, who is, give her credit. I'll give her credit every once in like 1,000 tweets. She says something that I agree with. But I still want her to lose her seat. Merrimack needs to have 8 good liberty-oriented representatives, so we're working on that. But I mean, it's, you know, the double standard up until this point has been very obvious. So it came as quite a surprise when the speaker called for his resignation immediately. It was like, he didn't even equivocate, like he didn't like remove him from a committee. He was just like, no, he needs to resign.
Yeah.
And then Ray Buckley, who has said some incredibly vile things in the past, agreed with him. So it was like, okay, what's going on here?
I think they realized it could be used to hurt Biden. And it wasn't like, who cares if one of our people said something? It's like, this Biden supporter and defender said this, and it's like, oh, that could trickle upstream to where, you know, it's a big deal. And everything I've seen Ray Buckley say, and he and I have had a nice little back and forth before. Here's the thing. There's people who know their limits. And I think he's someone who actually knows his limits, because he says some crazy things, but there's always a certain invisible line that he doesn't cross to where he's never had to answer for the crazy things he said. It just
that's absolutely right. He lets his trolls cross the line for him.
Yeah, he gets really close too.
And he never disowns it. He just says, I didn't say it.
Yeah. He did make some he did have some big anti-free stater thing and talk about sending him out on a busing him out and stuff. And he said some stuff, and I did kind of nail him to the cross over that one, where I said basically said, you know, I'm a Latino. You just told me to get out of the country, and you wanted to bus me out, and, you know, minority bus kind of things. And I hammered on that one in a very like respectfully, you know, disgusted kind
Sounds
of
like
tone.
A perfect use of Alinsky rule number 6.
Yeah, it was great. And he was like, I wasn't talking about that at all, but, you know, made him look bad. But that doesn't mean he doesn't say stupid things. But, you know, there's
everybody. I mean, we all say stupid things, right? But I mean, if you're gonna go the Comey level of stupid, or to the Deborah Altschiller level of stupid, then I mean that's a whole different ball game. You know, and there was Granite State Progress is another.
Yeah, Granite State Regress.
Let's look up Granite State Progress on Twitter. Nanny State Regress, yeah. So you saw the rally Saturday, right? Did you
Yeah,
go?
I did not go, unfortunately.
I did not either. I spent the weekend outside swatting mayflies and building a pig pen because the supply chain. Well, I mean,
Hmm.
I raise my own pigs anyways, but now I don't know if you have that picture there. The shelves at Market Basket are starting to. So the
Yeah,
toilet
no.
paper shelf is restocked,
Hmm.
and now we're back to meat, and the meat supply chain is breaking. So if you want any pig or chicken, hit me up, everybody. Um,
Yeah, so about stupid things said, it happens to just about everyone. In fact, I would say our good friend John Burt says stuff that might be considered a little bit stupid, but in ways that I don't want him to not say them. He definitely
yes, I love John Burt.
skirts the line in the perfect way, and then you have people who aren't as good at that because he's a funny guy. He's a funny guy who's
Are
you know
genuinely funny, but he's
you
also
know
a caring and
and
kind man, right?
And
Like he never means
he has the
malice.
Ned Flanders mustache. You can't go against that. Like he's just such like a nice old dude. Not even old. Like he's just like a nice fatherly figure, community member. He has has like those like high concerned eyebrows, and he's got that Mr. Speaker, that like tone that just so genuine. And then he does like, and of course he has his hot dog day at the state house, and he's just like
Yeah, that
such
should be coming up soon.
yeah.
There probably won't be any hot dog day this year,
It
sadly.
could be. Well, we'll see. But he gets away with some crazy stuff because of that. Some very like provocative in like a lighthearted trolling kind of way. Now, our mutual friend Josh Moore could definitely learn some from him, and I won't drag the poor guy through the mud again. But he did get in trouble in national news for some dumb things he said at one point. But hey, love you, Josh. Go back to chasing tornadoes. It's okay. You're absolved, my son. So we're coming up towards the end of this whole thing. So before we go into starting our send off, once again, subscribe, like, share this around, get other people to watch. As much as we love talking to a bigger audience. So get it out there. Subscribe to all the channels so you make sure whatever your preferred channel is, where it's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, it's going to be on. It's going to be on there, right? So look up Chris Maidman or myself, Joel Valenzuela, specifically on Facebook and YouTube and all this stuff. On my end of the thing is on the Desert Links, which is my nickname, but also my page and all that kind of stuff. So if you like it, of course, throw up a crypto donation, subscribe on Patreon, all that kind of good stuff, and keep this thing going. Now, I gotta say, as we go to the end, I do like to kind of end this on a funny note. And what is funnier in the modern times? What is funnier and crazier than Alex Jones? So Alex Jones, which by the way, context is everything. So Alex Jones is, in my view, not really that crazy. A little crazy. He's
He's a little crazy.
mostly very educated about a certain subset of things, including a lot of stuff that is not true and he might not even fully believe, just a lot of out there stuff. But more importantly, he has a very passionate delivery, and he gets carried away. He gets worked up and he starts saying crazy things. Like, it's not just that he comes out the gate crazy. He comes out the gate a little weird, and so he went on this. If you listen to his show, which I don't think I've ever actually listened to his show. I've just listened to clips of it when, guess what crazy thing he said this time? Like, where he spent like 10 minutes on air just actually like weeping into the microphone. And there's some guy like next to him, some guest who just sitting there all awkward, like, oh, what do I do now? But on a recent thing, he started talking about, the craziness that is the economic shutdown. We're going to lose all the whatever. Basically saying if there's wide-scale economic collapse, he's prepared to do whatever's necessary to protect his family, which is pretty reasonable. The problem is he started saying, basically, I would eat my neighbors. I would eat them. I'd totally eat them to defend the kids. And
Yeah, he's gonna string them up and eat their ass.
yeah, and that combination of words especially. So first off, the eat ass kind of thing, because of its other implications, was always hilarious. But also when you're just not talking about like, if I need to, I will go harvest my neighbors. Or like, no, he's talking. He's getting imagery of like, stringing up and gutting them like a deer and like just this grisly, crazy nonsense. It's like, don't say that. But he is what he is. So he had this crazy rant on this whole thing, and it's pretty funny. But someone on Twitter decided that they were going to take a picture, a psychedelic version of his like ranting face, and play over his rant with some kind of jazz background. And it really works, and it's really dumb, but I love it. And so we're going to send you off with that. I hope everyone enjoyed the show. We're going to be back next Monday. Ping us if you want us to talk about a specific thing, or if you have criticisms, hopefully not too harsh, and questions and compliments, whatever else. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to throw some coins. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Peace out, everybody.
I will eat my neighbors. I'm not letting my kids die. But I'm literally looking at my neighbors now and going, I'm ready to hang them up and gut them and skin them and chop them up. I'll eat my neighbors. I'll eat your ass. I will. And I'm starting to think about having to eat my neighbor. You think I like sizing up my neighbor? How I'm going to haul him up by a chain and chop his ass up? I'll do it. My children aren't going hungry. I will eat your ass. I will eat your ass first. I'll eat my neighbors. I will eat my neighbors. I will eat your ass. My children aren't going hungry. I'm not letting my kids die. I will eat my neighbors. I will. I will. I will eat your ass first.